Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Barbara Schreiner Trudell, and I am the spiritual director of the Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake. And our vision is transforming humanity through the emergence of the sacred, authentic self. And I'm the host of The Joy Show. And joy is an acronym for just one you. I really believe that as we live our authentic passion and purpose, life just gets better all the way around. So, as we begin today, I would like to begin with the land acknowledgement. And I am so grateful to be working from and playing on the lands that have been stewarded for millennia by numerous Indigenous people. And I know that this place has been home of the Indigenous and Indigenous nations long before colonial documentation of time, and is specifically the land of the Wendat, Anishinaabe, the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Haudenosaunee. I am so grateful to be able to spend time on this beautiful land and to honor and respect its heritage. Well, today I'm super excited. My guest today is the Reverend Dr. Dennis Merritt Jones. He is an international teacher, speaker, and author, really well known for his books. He is comfortable speaking to any audience on spiritual inspiration, whether it's secular, motivational, or something deeply spiritual. He knows that using the understanding of universal principles to draw upon gives us a great sense of understanding and deepening our relationship with life itself. So I am super grateful to have Dennis Merritt Jones with us today. Dennis, welcome. I'm
Hey,
so
my friend.
glad you're here.
Me too. Thank you.
Oh, I'm so grateful. Now, you have done many, many things, and I thank you for your mentoring because you've been a great part of my life over the last few months. And the books that you have authored are just so easy to understand, so beautifully simple, and it's like a roadmap to living. Can you share a
That's
little
well
bit
said.
about the books you've got and what the
Oh
purpose
gosh,
of
sure. I can give you a kind of a nutshell, an overview.
that?
The My first book that actually was published by a major publisher was The Art of Being: 101 Ways to Practice Purpose in Your Life.
Mm,
And that book is essentially designed to give the reader an experience of the fact that to realize that their purpose is not a point of arrival. The purpose is found in every given moment. Whatever it lies in front of us is where our purpose for that moment lies. And our job is to be so present in the moment that we can become available to what that moment has to present to us as an opportunity to express our highest being, which is our purpose for being here, is to be the vessel through which and as which infinite intelligence unfolds itself and expresses itself in unique ways. Second book would be The Art of Uncertainty. And
mm,
this book has been probably the bestseller of all of them because let's face it, uncertainty is something that is universal right now. It has been for the last number of years. This book was written like 10, 14 years ago, something like that, and it's still selling lots of books because uncertainty is as big now in the collective consciousness as it ever has been. So
maybe even more so
more
after
so, yeah,
COVID and stuff, right?
yeah. So the book, yeah, it is. The book takes the reader by the hand and processes what it means to. It culminates with an awareness and the acceptance of what I love. The poem by Guillaume Apollinaire wrote. Come to the edge, he said. They said, no, we're afraid. Come to the edge, he said. They came. He pushed them and they flew. And
Yes.
that's the point of the book is that we have to learn to come to the edge. We can't create anything new from within the box that we already know. We have to step outside of the box into the unknown, which is where creation takes place.
Well, and that's what's so exciting about the work that you do with your books and such is that it really helps people to get to that place of letting go
Yeah.
and really getting into the moment, whatever that looks like,
What,
and standing
yeah.
strong, right?
Which is difficult for the average bear, you know. The
Yeah.
third book is titled You're Redefining Moments, and the
Mm.
subtitle is Becoming Who You Were Born to Be. I love this book because what it does is it takes the reader back to who they were the moment they were born, before the world got a hold of them and started slapping all kinds of labels on them,
Yeah.
including our gender, our race, ethnicity. And as we grew, we got more and more labels slapped on us, tall, short, fat, skinny, smart, dumb, ugly, rich, poor. The labels go on and on and on. So the book is designed to take the reader back to who they were before all those labels were slapped on us, and to realize that at that beginning point of who we came here to be was pure essence of divine intelligence and love, and to learn how to redefine ourselves in this moment based on that definition rather than what the world has told us we need to be in order to be loved and approved of
Yeah, that's
and accepted.
yeah.
And then go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say that's so perfect. I have a daughter who's 17, and I remember what she was like right before she went into school. She was fearless.
Mm.
Like, she would just take the world by the reins and be her fabulous self, and when she got into school, she started to pull back. Now,
Mm.
fortunately, she's been in this teaching for all of these years,
Yeah.
so she has a strength within her that is just remarkable, but, I love this because this is a book I might introduce to my youth group that's starting next month
Good.
because again, they're getting messages that tell them they're not good enough, or,
Yeah.
they need to dress in a certain way, or they need to act in a certain way, or they have to speak in a certain way. And they're being, sort of pushed and pulled by society. And, giving them a roadmap back to truth would be a really powerful starting place. I think I'll
Well,
pick up.
I agree with that. I dedicated this book to my daughter
Yeah.
uh, because she is probably one of the most authentic human beings I know. She was
Yeah.
19 years old when she came out, and it was an amazing thing to watch who she became after she owned all of who she knew she was,
Yes.
and is marvelous. And so I dedicated the book to her, which is guiding each of us to go back and by means of redefining ourselves, access our authentic voice and express who we are in the world.
Wow, I love that. And that's what this show's all about. I'm hoping by the various interviews I do that people hear something that says it's okay to be me.
Yeah.
And I remember a few weeks back, I interviewed a transgender man who is a police officer here in Southern Ontario. And so that's kind of an interesting story. And him sharing the importance of being who he really is and standing in that, regardless of where he is and who he's with,
Yeah.
but being that whole human that he's always been. And that excites and delights me, you know.
Well, and that's the challenge for each of us is you don't have to be transgender or gay or any other particular
Oh,
thing that in order to not be authentic. What the key is to learn to be willing to courageously bring our authentic self to the world, because until we do, we're not being transparent. We're not being honest with ourselves or the world. And there's an amazing thing that happens with spiritual and emotional freedom when we own who we truly are and we're willing to share it with the world. As one author wrote, our purpose is to live out loud, to
yes.
arrive at who we are and then live out loud unapologetically.
Oh, that's beautiful. I remember taking a creative writing course in college a number of years ago, and the book we used was, Stand Naked to the World. And
Mm.
that's such a great vision to me in that allows for our vulnerability, that allows for that raw possibility. And as a creative writer, you have to do that. You have
Oh,
to
yeah.
put
Well,
your
as you know from the circles that we're in, one of the things about writers is they have to get used to the idea that not everybody's going to love what they say or do. And if they're
same
not,
ministers.
yeah, 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 and until you become a little bulletproof in that regard, if you're feeling like you need everybody's love and approval in order just to succeed, you'll never make it.
Exactly, exactly. All right, what other books have you got?
Let's see here. The Art of Abundance. There's the one before this is the Art of Abundance. I don't know if you have the graphics for that or not. The
Uh,
Art of Abundance is, a, yeah, there it is. It's a book about, there's this interesting story behind this, Barb. I don't know if I have time to tell the
yeah,
story.
go ahead, yeah.
After I'd finished Your Redefining Moments, my publisher came to me and said, "What's next? What's the next book you're going to do?" And I was kind of I wasn't really clear where I wanted to go. And he said, I got an idea. Write a book about prosperity. And I had, the minute he said that, I had this vision of The Secret popping up in books like that. And I said, no, that's not my bag. I don't. Then I thought about it, I prayed on it, and I realized that there was something that was missing in a lot of the teachings about prosperity, and that's the principle of abundance.
Exactly.
And so what I did through my own unfolding and research, I came to grips with the idea that life, the universe is based on the principle of abundance. There's no shortage of anything. So abundance is a principle, and prosperity is the demonstration or the manifestation of that abundance in specific forms. So we can be prosperous in a number of ways, not just what's in our wallet, but the quality of friends that we have in our lives, and health, and so many different ways that we can have an abundant supply of whatever's good. So that's the book, and it's been well received. It won the Nautilus Silver Award, which is a really nice acknowledgement for the book.
That's beautiful. And I've got a group running tomorrow that we're doing a book study on this particular
Well,
book.
there you go. I'm glad
I
to hear that.
love this book.
Good. And I mentioned also that all my books have study guides, free study guides that are available for free download on my website if you want.
Yeah. Now, that's another thing that's really one of the things I really admire about you is that not only have you written excellent books, but you've made it available to all of us that we can share them in a way that is really easy. I don't have to go in and create a
Right,
training program, like just go through and decipher it and decide. I
right.
can just download what you've got, which is what I've been using,
Well,
your
yeah.
study guide to be able to lead people through a process.
Well,
And it's been powerful.
as you know, I was a minister of a church for 23 years, and
Yeah.
I learned in that time that the easier that you can have access to teaching tools, the more likely you are to teach it.
Yeah.
So I
Exactly.
created the study guides for each book, knowing that ministers could use the study guide to teach from the books. It made it a lot easier. Turnkey, the simpler you can make it for somebody to teach an idea, the more likely they are going to use it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm really enjoying it. And I know you're going to be a guest tomorrow in the class.
Yeah,
And my students are very excited. There's a couple of people who have not been there for every week who have decided they got to come tomorrow. So I'm really grateful that you're going to share your wisdom with them because I think understanding how you wrote the book, why you wrote the book, I think is also a really big part of that book study where people can get an understanding of what abundance is and how do I acquire it. It's a way of living rather than an item or possession.
and what I like about that book is that it's divided into 10 rules for a prosperous life, and the first 3 rules really set up the principles, and
Yeah.
the following 7 rules set up the execution, application, and takeaway for it.
Yeah.
So by the time you get done with reading the entire book, you'll not only understand the universal principles of abundance, which are based on consciousness and expansion, but you'll see how to apply it in your daily life.
And that's ultimately, I think it was in Ernest Holmes who said, too much reading without putting, feet to the ground
Treat,
isn't
treat,
worth.
treat, and move your feet.
Yeah, treat and move your feet. So I really, really love that. We've got a couple of people who are making comments. I'll say hi to Dawn and to Wayne and to Rev B. Really grateful that you're all here. And I hope, and I know something wonderful you're going to hear and really, really love it. So the other book of yours that I bought recently was Your Encouraging Words. I think it's
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Yeah,
That your encouraging words is a book, a collection. As you would probably know, I've been a contributor, or author, writer for Science Mind magazine for a long time, many many years. So, encouraging words is a collection of essays and articles, most of them from Science Mind magazine, that I put into this book that all thread together with a common idea that who you are makes a difference. Who you are matters. And as you read the articles, you'll see that thread running through all of them.
and it's so important right now. with the world the way it appears to be, I believe it's doing a waking up, and that's why it looks a bit messy. So I look at
Mm.
all of it with gratitude, going, it's like doing spring cleaning. When you can see the dirt, you can wash it away. And I think that's how we arrive at healing. And so
Yeah.
when I look at the world around us, encouraging words are a really important part of the journey as we move forward. People need to hear more, yes, you can, and I know you're great and I love you and things like that, rather than you're
Yeah.
not good enough.
That's one of the things that the takeaways I try to leave with my audiences when I speak is one of the final things I'll say is understand that who you are matters. But
Yeah.
even more so, what you do with who you are matters on the planet.
Yeah.
As I say, when we leave this planet, we're going to be asked two questions before we can move into our next evolution of wherever it may be. And those two questions, in my opinion, are: did you learn to love well? Number one, did you learn to love well while you were there?
Yeah.
And the second one is: the planet a better place today than it was the day you got there because you were there? If you can answer,
That's
if you can
yeah.
answer yes to both of those questions, it's time for you to evolve into what's next.
Now you can move on to something else. I have a sweet story of my daughter and I were going to a drugstore, and there was a gentleman outside who was asking for money, and I said, joy of plastic. I never have cash on me, and I said, well, I don't have any cash, but we'd be happy to grab some food for you. And so we went in and we bought a few things and brought it out to him, and he was really surprised that we actually followed through. And my daughter at the time was 15. And so he had tears in his eyes. He gave me this huge hug and he
Mhm.
went, thank you so much. I think I spent $10. Like, it wasn't a big deal, but it
To,
made a
to
huge
you,
difference
but for
to
him,
him.
it was massive. Yeah.
You know what? It made a huge difference to my daughter. He gave me this big hug and then he looked at her and he wasn't sure because he's an older man. She's a 15-year-old girl. And I don't know, he saw something in her eyes or whatever. And he goes, oh, come here, you little shit. And he grabs her and he gives her this big hug. And we got in the car and she had tears in her eyes and this big smile. She said, that is the most beautiful thing I've ever
Oh,
experienced.
wow. How long ago was that?
About 2 years ago.
Okay.
Well, a little bit before COVID. So probably 3 years
Oh,
ago.
that's wonderful. What a great learning opportunity for her.
Well,
You're a good mom.
yeah. Well, I try to model a behavior that I want to see in the world,
Yeah,
and I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But every time I can do something to show my children the value of life, and she's fierce when it comes to making sure people are loved, respected, honored, admired, treated well. She's number one. Her school, her principal said to me, I don't really get these kids. I've never had a group of students like this who are so articulate and clear in what they will accept or not. And they do it with great respect.
yeah, yeah. I think that there's an evolution with each generation is getting a little bit more evolved, irrespective of how the
Yeah.
world is showing up. I think each generation
Mhm.
is becoming better messengers and stewards of the planet and
Yeah.
humankind.
And I think the work that you do, the work that I do is all about helping people to wake up, to let go of those old messages that might have caused them to feel limited or less than, removing those labels for them
Right.
to realize they're unique and special, just like everybody else.
Just like everybody else. That's right.
Well, even I'll do prayers morning and night online, and I always finish with "I love you,
Mm,
I
nice.
love you, God bless you, Namaste," because I want people to hear that over and over again. I
Yeah.
love you, and it started through COVID because people
Well,
were
we need to hear it for ourselves too, don't we? We
we
need to
do
hear ourselves say it. Look in the mirror and say it.
that's a practice that I've given to many people, and some of them don't like it very much in the
Yeah,
beginning.
it's very clear that some people have a tough time loving themselves.
Exactly. Oh, and Reverend Karina is here with us.
Hey, Reverend Karina, I talked to her just recently.
Yeah, yeah. So she's here from Puerto Vallarta, and I'm not sure where Deja is right now. If she's in Mexico City or which place she's in. She travels amongst family. But so, tell me a little bit about your journey to becoming a minister, to becoming an author. Like, what was it for you to find your authentic voice and then to be willing to share it?
Well, I discovered science of mind uh, in probably 1977. And
Mhm.
I was married at the time, and my life was a living hell, frankly. I don't know how else I can put it. I was transitioning out of a career as a musician into a career in real estate and mortgage banking. In my life, I was not a happy camper, and I was going through some real horrible times as far as emotional, not physically, but emotional relationships and whatnot. And one night I was watching television, and I switched on a channel that I was watching the baseball game, and it was between innings, so I was channel surfing. And the next channel over is this guy sitting behind a desk with a beautiful blue suit on, and his name was Dr. Frank Richelieu.
Oh, nice.
And he said the words I needed to hear in that moment. One of my fundamentalist friends had me convinced that the devil was after me,
Oh,
and I had was living in quite a bit of fear of that, frankly. And the
understood.
very first words out of his mouth as I turned at the channel he was on, he said, "Friends, I have to tell you, there is no devil. We create our own devils." And I go, "Whoa!" And that was the beginning of a love affair with science of mind, which
Wow.
was how many years ago? 40 plus years, you know. And so that was how I began my. I sent away that day for uh, materials, we'll find out where the local church was, etc.
Yeah.
And I began my attending one of the local Science of Mind religious science churches at that time. And through that affiliation, I started taking classes and learning more and more and more about the principles that we teach in Science of Mind. And I discovered that I was becoming a different person. And how I knew that was some of my friends who I'd known before I discovered Science of Mind, we'd have a weekly poker game.
Yeah.
And over the months that I started studying the teachings of Science of Mind, my friends would say, "What's going on with you? You're different. You're different. You've changed." And I just smiled. I said, "You're absolutely right." And they were able to observe that who I was being redefined from the inside out as a spiritual sacred being living in this skin suit, this body of flesh and bone. And that was the beginning of my journey. And I began to continue taking classes while I continued to develop a career for myself in real estate and mortgage. And I realized at one point after I finished all my classes, and this is true story, I was a musician at that time. Also, I was singing down at the Redondo Beach Church one Sunday for Frank Richelieu. He
Yeah.
pulls me aside, and we're just getting ready to go out on the platform in front of 800 people, 1,000 people. He says, "You finished all your ministerial training, right?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "I want you to go to Simi Valley and start a church." And I knew Simi Valley was a place I knew, and I had no desire to ever go back there. And I said, "No, that ain't going to happen."
Yeah.
And Barbara, he leaned into me. He put him up against the wall. And he put his finger on my chest, and he says, "You never know. This could be God talking to you right now."
I
True
love
story.
that.
And I said, "Well, okay, I'll think about it." So a week later, I was on the phone with him, asking him for his mentoring to help guide me through the process. He
Yeah.
was happy to do it, and so that I started the church in Simi Valley in 1985 and stayed there for 23 years. Grew a wonderful church. Turned over the keys to Dr. Jim Lockhart, and he was there for 7 or 8 years, and now it's another minister, Stephen Rambo, is operating the church, and the church is doing wonderfully. And so it's all good. And here I am doing what I'm doing today.
That's wonderful. It's interesting. Our paths are similar because while I was studying for ministry, when I found Science of Mind, I was actually in a really destructive marriage, and life was hell, absolutely. And a friend of mine told me about it. And the first time I walked in, it was Arlene Bump, who was the minister in Calgary at the time.
Yeah,
And it was like I felt like I walked into a love fest.
yeah.
It was like I had this feeling of love. And then it took me a couple of years to change that relationship and get out of it. And when I ended my marriage, my husband started attending the church. He was a very violent man, so I
Oh,
could not go.
wow.
And then a friend of mine said, "You know, I haven't seen him in a number of months. I think you need to come." And by then it was the Reverend Carol Carnes who was the minister.
Right.
So I trained with her for the 5 years of my ministerial training. But at the time, I was a realtor
Oh, okay.
selling
Well, there
selling
you
real
go.
estate, and then going
Location, 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 baby.
exactly. And even starting ministry, because when I was graduated, it was like I knew I wanted to come to Toronto to start a church, but it wasn't really happening. And a friend of mine called me up a couple months later and said, "Why didn't you apply for the church in Vernon?"
Hmm.
I couldn't remember why I didn't. So I applied, I got that, and that was my first ministry. It was in Vernon, and I served there for 18 months before coming to Toronto to start the first CSL here.
Good for you.
Yeah, so
Quite a
it's
journey.
been a journey, but there's similarities in our path.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can write great books like you. I don't know. We'll
Yeah.
see.
And you know what? That's the wonderful thing about my mentoring is that everybody has a book in them,
Yes.
and not everybody knows how to bring it forward. That's the problem, you
Yeah.
know. And so there's techniques and ways to give yourself permission to access your authentic voice is what you need to do. And I'm not talking about the words that come out of your mouth. Your authentic voice is how you express yourself in the world. And once people glom onto that idea and they start exploring their writing and listening to their intuitive self, they come up with some pretty amazing ideas and words and stories and whatnot to help put wheels on their books.
Well, it's exciting. I've been doing the journaling since I started the mentoring course with you, and that has really been a great practice because when I go back and read it a week later, I'm like, I said that, you know. And there's other stuff I'm going, oh, okay, oh, yeah,
Hey,
oh,
wait till you write it. I'm rereading several of my books now because I'm going to going out and doing some presentations on them.
yeah.
And I have some of these books I haven't read in a long time, and I read a passage. Did I write that? Man, that's really good. I don't remember that.
Wow, I'm doing pretty good here. Well, we're going to take a short commercial break and then we'll be right back. So, you're watching The Joy Show, everyone, and Dennis Merritt Jones is my wonderful guest today. And just hang around. We'll be gone for a minute or two and be right back. Thank you for sharing the time with us. And we're back. So, we've been talking about the incredible books that Dennis Merritt Jones has written, but also his path through ministry and how he got to this place. So, welcome back, everyone. And Dennis, tell me a little bit more. So, I mean, you've gone through the from hell to heaven, which of course are not destination places, they're the here and now. And what is the biggest difference, do you think, in your life today as compared to when you first found this teaching?
Inner peace.
Ah, yes.
That's I learned, early on to communicate that peace is possible for everybody. But the world peace is not going to happen until every human being has found inner peace within themselves. We know that.
Yeah.
That's why I sign all my communications and my letters, peace, Dennis,
Peace.
because I
Yeah.
want to affirm it's an affirmation for me. But probably what I grew to understand, Barbara, is I'm not going to change the world by beating on it. I'm not going to. That won't work. The only way to change the world is become part of the solution, not the problem. In
Yeah.
order to do that, how I understand my role in it is that I participate in adding something to the collective consciousness on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Collective consciousness meaning the sum total of the humankind, that the consciousness that surrounds the planet, with contributed to by every human being who's ever lived and is living now. And so the more people that can contribute something to the collective consciousness that is established in peace, harmony, balance, equanimity, kindness, compassion, the world slowly will become more acclimated to those ideas. You wouldn't think so by what we see on the news right now, that the world's, it appears though it's on fire and it's really falling apart. But we have to know that, as the great teacher said, this too shall pass.
Yeah.
This too shall pass. So for me, the greatest shift has been inner peace, which doesn't happen by snapping your fingers. It happens by deepening your sense of who you are in relationship to the whole, WHOLE, the
Yeah.
presence, God. And the more I over the years, I've been able to personalize that and eliminate any belief in separation between myself and infinite God, infinite intelligence, God, beloved, whatever you want to call it, the more inner peace that I was able to claim in my own life. And I try to remember that as I teach people and I work with people and talk to people, that peace is a possibility that is always there in every given. It's kind of like silence. You may hear noise going
Yeah.
all around you, but underneath it, there's peace. If you strip away the noisemakers, peace is there. So my job is to consciously strip away the noisemakers, watching the news and going, and really come back to that place of experiencing my oneness with something that's larger than myself, that is, in my opinion, infinite love.
I agree. I agree. And it's interesting. I mean, Gandhi said years ago, be the peace you want to see in the world, right? And I sign everything with love, and it's because that is that uniting force. And it's interesting how whatever seems to be lacking from our experience sort of calls us into, as we redefine, as we go back to the beginning, we realize that we always were that, whatever that message is. My husband is a comedic actor, and he grew up in a home where there wasn't really a lot of joy, and he's bringing joy and laughter, especially to children and different communities, like being that very present, joyful presence, and finding humor in the most unusual places. We're driving down the street and you'll
Yeah.
see a sign that's written kind of differently, and he'll read it, but the way he reads it causes a big laugh. And there's just something about that. And for me, I always felt, I went through this journey of my life where I never felt loved. It's
Mm.
like, what is that? And so I had to find it for me and to love myself, which then has allowed me to find love for others to be super easy. But it's that journey. And I think, when we think about the news, I don't watch the news because
Mm.
I just cannot. And with that 24-hour news cycle, it's like
You're
one story,
bombarded. Yeah.
yeah, one story's repeated 1,000 times. So now it sounds like 1,000 stories.
Yeah. That's because drama sells, you know, that's
Yeah.
that's simple. I love the title of your show, The Joy Show. In one of my keynote talks, I talk about in the art of being on purpose. I
Yeah.
talk about, there's 3 questions that you can ask yourself on a daily basis to see how well you're doing at being who you came here to be. And the first question is, am I having fun?
Am I having
You
fun?
know, and joy in its highest vibration, fun is joy in its highest vibration, which is, it oozes through our pores.
Yeah.
And not enough of us take time daily to give ourselves permission to have fun.
Exactly. My eldest grandchild, when I think at the time she was maybe 2 or 3, I was visiting my daughter's house, and there was a big puddle outside. So we went outside and we were jumping in the puddle. And my daughter is like, "Oh my God, what a mess." But I'm sitting back having so much fun because when I was a little girl, I got beat for doing that. And I thought, no, 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 we're sending new messages here.
You
We're
betcha.
going to do this and we're going to do it together and we're
I
going to
love
have fun with it. But I think we tend to sometimes take life too serious. We
you
think
think?
it's, yeah, just a guess. But it's like relaxing and going, this moment is what this moment is.
Well,
And
I have a theory: high involvement and low attachment. Be highly involved in the present moment and whatever you're doing, and
hmm
don't be attached to the results and how it ends up, and you're going to be happy.
exactly right. I shared with you at the beginning of the show that, oh, look at
Oh,
this.
there's one of my teachers right there, Mac Doodle. He's laying right at my feet here. Right
Oh,
now.
what a doll. He's so cute.
Yeah, he's a
Yeah.
great teacher. Dogs are marvelous teachers of principle. To be
Oh,
present in the moment, unconditionally loving. They don't speak badly of anybody. They don't gossip. There's all kinds. All he does is check his P mail every day when he's out on his walks. So,
and isn't that the best?
yeah,
I have a little dog, a little Jack Cheat, and we go out for walks twice a day. And when we go out, man, I don't get much walking in. I'm doing a lot of standing while he's
yeah,
sniffing.
yeah. That's what dogs do. That's how they communicate.
It is. It's so good. That's such a great photo. I love that
Yeah,
photo.
thank you.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
what's your dog's name?
Mac Doodle.
Mac.
Mac Doodle Super Poodle. He's half golden doodle and half labradoodle, which makes
Oh,
him a double doodle.
double doodle. I love that. I love it. How
Incredibly
could you
smart,
not be
athletic.
joyful?
Talk about playful, man. He's 12 and a half years old now, and he still just has this just kind, gentle spirit that he's
Wow.
always ready in the moment to play too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's ours too. Ours is 11. And, as soon as he gets a little bit excited, that tail is just moving so fast. You wonder, like, how on earth can he move it as
Yeah,
fast as he does? But it's so cute. And he brings joy. He brings joy everywhere he goes. And he's really a peaceful little quiet guy, even though he's Jack Russell Chihuahua mix.
yeah. I
He's
have
like
uh,
quiet and calm.
my friend Alan Cohen wrote a book called once called "Are You as Happy as Your Dog?"
I love Alan Cohen. I've got his Joy is Your
Yeah, he's
Compass.
a good
Joy
guy.
is my compass. Yeah. Yeah. I think dogs are a great example. Not cats so much. I have two cats, but they're a little more standoffish. But the dog is like always ready. Like he'll be sound asleep by the door and I'll go up and jiggle his leash or say, "Hey, Cyrus." And he's like,
Yeah,
"Let's go."
and they don't put a guilt trip on you because you went away. They're just happy to see you.
Exactly, exactly, all the time. I think that's one of the things that I would like to see more of when it comes to our children is that we reduce some of the pressure that we place on them and allow them to find their rhythm and their unique voice as young as possible rather than going you have to do this or you have to do that or you have to be this or don't make a noise in church because you might offend
Right.
somebody over here. It's like churches should be, in my mind, I love my spiritual center and I want it to be as noisy as can be. It's like let's bring life to this place rather than it has to be rigid and stuck down. I mean, little children make noise and they should be allowed to.
Okay. There's two schools of philosophy on that. I agree with what you're saying, which is why we built in a crying room at the back of the
Yeah,
sanctuary, so kids can be part of the
yeah,
service of the
please.
parents, and
Yeah,
still the joy and noise from the kids did not invade on those people who didn't have kids or want to be.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was trying to find a balance between the two.
Yeah, and I think that's really great when there is a room, especially for babies, because that can be more distracting. But a little one who's standing up on the pew and looking at the person behind them and smiling, like that to me is just joy expressed. When my youngest daughter was really little, we've got video on YouTube of me doing a Sunday lesson, and she's about a year and a half or 2 years old, and she's wrapped around or got her arms wrapped around my leg. And I never used a podium. I'm just speaking. And
Right.
as I'm walking back and forth and stuff, she's just coming along with me. Perfectly quiet, perfectly happy to be there. But yes, some people were not crazy about it. And other people thought it was
If
adorable.
you
And
can maintain your focus in doing that, that's God bless you.
my focus was laser. Like there was no problem with it at all. And I think it may have even helped some people to begin to realize that it really wasn't, she wasn't doing anything distracting to me. And why would she distract you?
Well,
You
the teacher Jesus really counseled us on it. He said, "Suffer the little children, be like children, be childlike." Which
know,
means that watch what a child does, and they do a lot of the same things a dog do. Dogs, they're present in the moment. Their kids are so present in the moment, and
yeah,
you know what? They don't judge like adults. We teach them to judge,
we teach them to judge, to
and
criticize, to
yeah,
gossip, to
yeah,
hate.
yeah,
Yeah. And who does that serve?
yeah.
Like, it actually doesn't serve anyone, and it's I remember, so my family's really spread out. My eldest daughter is 49, my youngest is 17, so there's a little
Spread a little gap there.
just spread out a little bit. But what's interesting with my youngest is it's a very different experience because I'm a very different person today than I was when I had my first three kids. But it's interesting, I was at school because she was having challenges with math. And so I went to the school to speak to the principal and the teacher, and we had this conversation. And at one point in time, the principal said, Genevieve, you've got to give up what you're doing. You've got to, you've got to stop all your extracurriculars. You got to focus on that math. And I'm like, my daughter's a singer and she loves to sing and she has a glorious voice and it's her passion. She sings around the clock. And I looked over at her and I said, sweetheart, you have to pass math. Fast forward to grade 10, and I thought I better talk to the math teacher because she was having trouble in grade 7 and 8. And he says she has such a mathematical mind.
Well, music is math.
Music is math, of course it is.
Yeah.
And then in grade 11, which she just finished, her average was 98%. She didn't like her teacher. Her teacher wasn't connecting with her. And it's like I could have said give up music, and
Yeah. Yeah.
throw down the gauntlet, but I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. And music is one of the quickest pathways to the heart too. I have a book. My mom turned me on to a book years ago written by a poet by the name of Don Blanding. And
Oh, okay.
the book is called Joy is an Inside Job.
Mm.
Book of poetry that is phenomenal. Matter of fact, I may have two copies of it. If I do, I'll send you a copy of it.
Oh,
It's
that would
way
be
out of print. It's matter of fact, Don Blanding was a student of Ernest Holmes.
okay. Okay, so it all fits
Yeah,
together.
literally a friend and student of Ernest Holmes. So the book Joy's Inside Job is really very, very much in alignment with the principles
Oh.
we teach.
Yeah, I love that. I'm finding more and more people, it doesn't really matter where they're coming from or the type of work they do, but there's a whole energy of building bridges. There's a whole thing about coming together and just being honoring and respectful of each other and listening to each other's stories so we find common ground or at least respect for one another so we can be without causing wars and fighting and all the other things that sometimes are
That's
going
that's
on.
a that's a worthy vision to hold to and to
Mhm.
bring forward. Good. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard about, I don't know if you've heard of it. There's a thing called the Human Library.
No.
And it's where two people sit facing one another and one person tells their story. For about a half an hour, they just share their journey, their life, and the other
Well,
person simply receives it. It's a library, no talking back.
without going, oh my God, oh, or
Yeah.
yeah, that's sweet.
And it's a lovely way to get to know because we think we know somebody
Yeah.
and we don't.
Well,
Even my husband, 20 years, and I'm still telling him stories he didn't know.
yeah, yeah. I refer to that as witnessing somebody.
Yes.
There's a great story in the movie Shall We Dance? I don't know if you ever saw
I
Richard Gere,
yes, yes.
Susan Sarah, which is a remake of the original. But there's
Yeah.
a scene in there where he goes off to a dance studio because he's a successful, good-looking attorney, he got a beautiful family, he's very happy at home, but there's something missing in his life. So he goes out and he sees a dance studio and he starts taking ballroom dancing lessons. And he's gone every Wednesday night and he's embarrassed to tell his wife what he's doing because he's having so much fun at it and it's unconventional. And
Yeah.
so she gets suspicious. She thinks he's having an affair. He's having an affair. So she hires a private eye who follows him to the dance studio and watches through binoculars what's going on in the dance studio. And he comes back and tells the guy, Richard Gere's wife, Susan Sarandon, I found him. He's dancing every Wednesday night with this beautiful woman. And that's the problem with the relationships. You can't trust anybody anymore. It's all about people using each other. And Susan Sarandon stopped midstream. She said, "Wait, that's not it at all." She
Right.
realized. She said, what we seek is someone to witness our lives."
Witness us. Yeah. I
And,
think
and we
that's one
do.
of the greatest gifts
Yeah, it is.
is,
It's a great gift to,
yeah, to
to
see
be able
each other.
to stand witness to somebody and to know that you as the witness are serving not only as a witness but a mirror.
Yeah, exactly. It helps us to acknowledge our own uniqueness, our own places where we may have had an injury or something, but we're willing to come back and start to heal that, where we go, that may have happened in my life, but it doesn't define me.
Well,
Just like
it's
body
also yeah, it's also a way to affirm that who you are matters. If I'm willing to witness you and see the highest and best in you, I'm
yeah,
acknowledging, whether it's spoken or not, that who you are matters to me. You
yeah.
know,
Yeah,
that's
it's a great honor to bestow on another
you,
individual.
you bet it is.
To be present with them, and yeah, I love that. I love that. That's what I'm working with my children is, I listen to parents sometimes, my child's a lawyer or CPA or doctor or this or that, and I'm going, my kids are all artists, and and some of them are making good money and some of them are struggling financially. I don't care. They're doing what they love to do. So at the core level, there's a great joy that is happening with them. And that to me is a successful life.
Yeah.
And as they heal whatever areas they need to, they'll experience more and more prosperity. But the journey that they're on is their journey, it's not mine. And so my willingness,
Congratulations as a parent to be able to recognize that and not try to make their journey your journey.
I tried that earlier.
Yeah, we all have. It doesn't work, does it?
It doesn't work. My youngest son was, this great rebel. And finally, at, I don't know, 13 or 14, I was in practitioner training. And I had my whole prayer team. I mean, Sharon Mitchell can tell you about this too. I said, everybody, oh, pray for my son, pray for my son. Let's do treatment for my son because he's broken and flawed. Let's do treatment for him. And all of a sudden, I woke up one day because they were all treating. And I
Mhm.
woke up one day going, whoa, I'm the problem.
What you see, perception is everything, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it was that moment of recognizing I needed to be different. I needed to accept him as he was. And he's one of the most beautiful human beings on the planet. He is such an exquisite person with such great artistic talent and love of humanity.
And part of the reason probably that he has unfolded that way is that you saw that in him and nurtured it in him. Good for you.
And youth camp, RSI youth
Oh
camp.
gosh, yeah. Yeah, I was a youth advisor back in 1980 something, I went to a couple of youth camps as one of the advisors, and
Yeah,
those kids are so sharp, so together, and so
so remarkable.
yeah. My daughter was actually president of the RSI youth camp one year, and she was like 13, 14 years old, and
Isn't that amazing?
amazing to see how they
Yeah.
live the principles in their own way.
They do, and I was only an advisor once at a youth camp, but it was one of the most
Once is
profound.
enough.
It's exhausting. The kids don't wanna leave, and the adults can't wait to get home.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
sleeping in a
it
sleeping bag was not my favorite thing to do, but, you gotta be where you are.
Yeah, I really loved it, and I think there was something in it that helped me heal as well, in that, the traumas I had as a teenager, I was still carrying those,
Mm,
and being with those kids and going through that practice, and we drove from Calgary to California,
yeah,
so there was 4 teenagers and 3 adults
that's a
in a
long
van for 4 days each.
Well, what the kids do at the teen camps is they make it a safe place, and the advisors really are aware of that. They
Yeah,
make it a safe place for these kids to be who they are and
yeah,
to share that uniqueness that they are and nurture that. And by the end of the week, these kids are just so deeply in love with each other spiritually and emotionally that they come home transformed.
they do. They do. My son was changed at depth,
Yeah,
from that experience, and he went twice, I
yeah,
think.
and
Um,
some of them will maintain those friends for their lives too. The
yeah,
kids really
yeah.
met.
I think he's got a couple of them that he still communicates with, and he's now, what, 40? Well, he just turned 40. So, it's like,
You're
that's
dating
a long
yourself.
time.
You're dating yourself. You don't look that old to have a 40-year-old friend.
I have a daughter who'll be 50 in March,
Oh
so,
my god. That's
yeah,
funny.
it's like, you do what you can. But I love the idea of just respecting people where they are and finding the common ground and giving up our idea of I know best.
Boy,
That's
there's a profound thought right there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
because I don't know anything.
Yeah.
you know.
Yep. I'm writing a piece right now about arrogance and ignorance and how they go together, and
Oh, nice.
to learning how to transcend that,
Yeah.
as a culture.
It's interesting. I don't read the Bible a lot. I always found it kind of hard to understand. And then I had a teacher over the last 10 years who really helped me to get a sense of it. And my favorite book is the book of Job.
Mhm.
And Job's journey, of course, was very much, I know best, and I'm going to look after all these broken people. And then he got his smack down.
Right.
And, you know,
But he transcended.
he
He came
did
back.
transcend. Yeah.
I
So we,
love the scriptures. I was very blessed by my teacher. My primary teacher is William Curtis,
yeah.
who was a Bible scholar, and
Uh,
so every class, every Sunday, we would get biblical stories and the metaphysical interpretations of them, and it was profoundly important in understanding the Bible. Scriptures can be interpreted as a living, breathing document that is applicable to our lives today.
right today, it's a perfect document. In fact, my teacher, well, I had CSL Toronto for 11 years, and when my dad died is when I stepped away, and I found a UFBL church here in Toronto, and I started attending there. And the Reverend Evan Reed was, I mean, he knew the history, the metaphysics, that he could recite the Bible, just
Yeah.
like it was part of his existence. And so I took all of his classes, and oh, he just made it come alive for me. And he kept saying to me, just open it up. And when you read a passage, just sit with it. Let it sink in. What does it mean to me today? And he said, you will get the metaphysical.
Yeah, understanding the parables and the idioms
Mm,
are key too.
absolutely.
I love the Old Testament, but I love the New Testament too.
Best. Yeah.
I think Jesus summarized his entire ministry into two phrases. I couldn't quote where there are in the script in the Testaments, but the first thing he said is, he taught the idea that I and the Father are one. There's only one of us here. God is all there is, and I'm one with it.
Yeah.
Oneness. The
Yeah.
second thing he taught was, "It is done unto you as you believe."
What do we
Oneness and the law of mind in action. Go figure.
It's exactly what we teach every week, constantly. It's what we write about. It's what we share in our
Yeah.
conversations.
And, Ernest Holmes said something profound about that too. He was truly a Bible.
He was, yeah,
He said that we do not look to Jesus or as the only, you know, what was the term? Let me think of it. He said,
the only Son
we,
of God. Or
we don't we don't proclaim that Jesus is not the Son of God. We proclaim that every man and woman is also the son and daughter of God. That's my paraphrase of what he said, but it's
yeah,
profoundly meaningful.
yeah. Because when we get that, right, we're all created from the same source and substance, and of course, we see that in science today
Yeah.
when we look at quantum physics and stuff. That whole idea of energy is everything, and it's, when I read Ernest Holmes and he's talking about the ether, back in the early 1900s, before we had the ability to really see
Yeah.
what matter
Energy.
looks like.
Energy.
Yeah, we can see the energy. It's like I look at that and I go, wow, like this is just juicy, juicy stuff. It's exciting to every time I pick up the Science of Mind, it's like reading a brand new book again. It's like I open up a page and it's like I know I've read it before because I've read it cover to cover
Yeah.
times.
Yeah, I could show you I think I shared this with one of the circles. I've gone through like 4 or 5 Science of Mind textbooks in my life,
Yeah,
and every one of them fell apart on me because I read them so much and highlighted and underlined and wrote in the columns and stuff. So those are living documents too.
they
'Cause
are.
it's fun to go back and look at my Science of Mind textbook from the '80s, in the early '80s to the '90s, and even my textbook when I started teaching, because I'd
Yeah,
highlight and underline and write in the columns and stuff. It's kind of a depiction of the evolution of my understanding of Science of Mind as I grew.
yeah,
Remember, I've said on a number of occasions, we have to teach what we wanna learn.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the things that for me, looking at my parenting after, yeah, guiding people to purpose. I love that.
Yeah.
The whole idea of, with our youth and stuff, I've written programs for elementary school and just again getting the message out that, the things that we say have power, that what we put out, especially online, is there forever. And so we have to pay attention to what we're doing and how we're doing it. And I've written a children's book that I'm hoping to get published soon that is all about how unique and special we all are. And it's just getting these messages out to the younger people, but also parents. And I remember years ago, I kept telling Reverend Carol, you got to have a youth group. You got to have a youth group. You got to have a youth group. And one day she looked at me and she said, oh, for crying out loud, just start a
Start.
youth group if you want one so bad.
Watch what you ask for, you.
Yeah. So I did. And what was interesting was we would get anywhere from 17, 18, 19, 20 kids who would come Sunday morning.
Yeah,
I mean, teenagers don't get out of bed in the morning if they don't have to, but
yeah,
they would come. And there were some kids that came that were not part of families that attended our
yeah,
church. They had nothing to do with it.
yeah.
And all of a sudden their behaviors were changing and their parents were like, let
What's
me
going
see
on
what's
over there,
going
man?
on.
Yeah, yeah,
Parents found their way
yeah,
to the center as a result of their
yeah,
children having this transformative
yeah.
experience.
That's a wonderful thing to see that the child should show the way, as it says in the scriptures.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we
yeah.
need to pay more attention to our children and
Oh, yeah.
let them lead.
No, no, no. Well, the Sufis teach that what we're doing today affects children 7 generations out. And we have
Yeah,
to be mindful of how we are conducting ourselves on the planet, because 7 generations out, children are gonna inherit what we're doing now.
yeah. Wow. Well, let's just be the love and the peace and watch the transformation. This has been absolutely rich and beautiful. I am so grateful that you were able to make time today to join us. And there's a great picture. And I'm really excited that you're going to join the Art of Abundance Book Club tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Eastern Time, for anybody who wants to join. Send an email to admin@cslonthelake.com and we will send you the link and you can be in that
Yeah,
conversation.
come and join us.
Join us. It's free, it's wonderful, and you will get more rich blessings. Reverend Dr. Dennis Merritt Jones, thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you, my friend, and I'm
Thank
so
you. I'm
grateful.
honored by you inviting me on your program, and you're doing a great job. Keep it up. You're making a difference.
Oh, bless your heart. Bless your heart. Well, everyone, that's another show, another week. We will be back next week doing this all over again. Please join us. And hey, stay tuned. You'll see everything on YouTube if you want to watch this show back a second time. Have a great week. I love you. God bless you.
Peace.
Namaste. Peace.